The lawyer's letter had been a surprise, a name I barely remembered. Great Aunt Millie, leaving me her old farmhouse. I hadn't seen her since I was a little boy, a vague memory of a kind woman with flour on her apron. Now, years later, her farm, a place I'd never known, was mine. The drive out there was long, the city fading behind me, replaced by fields, and then, finally, a dirt track that wound up to a house that looked like it was sighing. It was weathered, paint peeling, a porch swing hanging by one chain. Sad, really, but there was something about it too, a quiet strength. Inside, it was like stepping back in time. Dust lay thick on everything, cobwebs draped like ghostly decorations. The air was heavy with the smell of old wood, damp, and something else. A faint lingering scent of lavender, maybe. I figured I'd sort through what I could, sell the place, and get back to my life. That was the plan anyway. Days turned into a week of sifting through memories that weren't mine. Old photographs, of faces I didn't recognize, chipped teacups, a moth-eaten quilt. It was mostly just stuff. Ordinary, forgotten stuff. Then, in the smallest bedroom upstairs, the one with the faded rose wallpaper, I found it. I was trying to move an old, heavy wooden chest, thinking it might be worth something. It scraped against the floorboards, and one of them, right near the wall, popped up a little. Curiosity got the better of me. I pried it up. Underneath, nestled in the dusty space, was a small, leather-bound book. It was tied shut with a faded ribbon. My heart gave a little thump. This felt different. I sat on the edge of the dusty bed, the afternoon sun slanting through the grimy window, and carefully untied the ribbon. The pages were brittle, the ink faded in places, but the handwriting was clear, looping, and unmistakably a woman's. The first entry was dated nearly 70 years ago. Ilara, the first page read. Not Millie. Who was Ilara? I started to read. At first, it was the everyday things of a young woman on a farm. Worries about the crops, joy at a new calf, little descriptions of sunsets and wildflowers. She wrote about her parents, her chores, her dreams. Simple things, but her words painted pictures. I felt like I was there with her, smelling the hay and feeling the sun on her face. Then a new name started appearing more and more. Thomas. Her descriptions of him were shy at first, then filled with a warmth that made me smile. He worked on a neighboring farm. They'd meet by the creek, share secrets under the big oak tree. I read about their first dance at the town hall, the way his hand felt in hers. It was sweet, innocent, full of hope. I found myself rooting for them, this Ilara and Thomas from long ago, but then the tone of the diary began to change. A shadow crept into her words. There were whispers of disapproval from her parents. Thomas, it seemed, wasn't considered good enough. He didn't own land, had little to offer. Ilara wrote of arguments, of tears shed in secret. My own chest ached, reading it. They don't understand, she wrote one night, the ink smudged as if by a tear. They don't see his heart, his kindness. They only see what he doesn't have. The entries became more infrequent, more desperate. Thomas talked about leaving, about finding work in the city, making something of himself so he could come back for her. Ilara was torn. To leave with him would mean abandoning her family, her home. To stay would mean losing him. And then, a new kind of fear entered her writing. A secret, hinted at first, then written in stark, terrified clarity. She was pregnant. My breath caught in my throat. In that time, in that small, tight-knit community, a baby out of wedlock, when it would have been a terrible scandal. Ruin for her family. The diary entries from that period were heartbreaking. She wrote of her shame, her fear, but also a fierce, protective love for the tiny life growing inside her. Thomas, when she finally told him, was supportive, she wrote. He wanted to marry her immediately, face the consequences together. But Ilara knew what it would mean for him, for their child. They'd be outcasts. The next few pages were almost unbearable to read. She described hiding her condition, the growing panic, the sleepless nights. Her parents, she wrote, eventually found out. The anger, the disappointment, the coldness she described from them felt like a punch. Then came the entry that made my own eyes well up. They have made arrangements, she wrote. A family far away. They say it is for the best. For the baby's future. A good home, a proper name. My heart is breaking into 1,000 pieces. How can I give away a part of myself? There were no entries for a long time after that. When she started writing again months later, the joy was gone from her voice. It was flat, empty. She wrote about the silence in the house, the ache in her arms. She never mentioned Thomas again. I wondered what happened to him. Did he leave? Did he even know about the arrangements? The diary continued for a few more years. Sparse entries about farm life, the changing seasons. But the spark was gone. It was the diary of someone going through the motions. Her spirit dimmed. The last entry was short. The roses are blooming, by the porch. They were always his favorite. Sometimes I still look for him coming up the path. I closed the diary, my hands trembling. Ilara. This wasn't Millie's diary, so who was Ilara? And why was her diary hidden here? I sat there for a long time, the silence of the old house pressing in on me. I thought about my great-aunt Millie. She'd never married, never had children. She'd lived her whole life on this farm alone after her parents passed, could it be? I picked up the diary again, flipping through the pages, searching for a clue, a name, anything. And then I saw it, a small, almost overlooked detail in one of the later entries, when Ilara wrote about her parents getting older. She mentioned her younger sister Millie, always so quiet, so observant. Millie was Ilara's sister. And Ilara had a child given away. A cold dread, mixed with a strange dawning understanding, washed over me. I thought about my own family. The stories I'd been told. My grandmother, my dad's mom, had been adopted. Her parents, my great-grandparents, had always been loving. But the story of her adoption was a quiet, unspoken thing. They'd said her birth mother couldn't care for her. No other details were ever offered. My grandmother's birth year, it matched. It would have been right around the time Ilara wrote about giving up her baby. The air rushed out of my lungs. The shocking legacy wasn't gold or hidden treasure. It was me, my family. My grandmother was Ilara's daughter. Ilara, the woman, who poured her heart into this diary, who loved a man named Thomas, who made an impossible sacrifice. She was my great-grandmother. Tears streamed down my face then, hot and fast. Tears for Ilara, for her lost love, for her unbearable pain. Tears for my grandmother, who never knew her birth mother's story. And tears for myself, for this sudden, overwhelming connection to a past I never knew existed, to a woman whose blood ran in my veins. This farmhouse wasn't just an old building anymore. It was a place of love, of heartbreak, of immense sacrifice. Ilara had walked these floors, looked out these windows, dreamed her dreams here. Her spirit felt so close, so real. I spent the rest of the day and many days after just sitting with the diary, rereading passages, letting it all sink in. The stuff in the house wasn't just stuff anymore. The chipped teacups might have been hers. The faded quilt could have been one she slept under. I found a very old, small photograph tucked into the back of the diary. A young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, standing beside a tall, earnest-looking young man. Ilara and Thomas. They looked so happy, so full of hope. It was a small, precious glimpse of what they'd had before it was all torn away. Decided then that I couldn't sell the farm. Not yet. Maybe not ever. It felt like sacred ground now. Ilara's legacy wasn't just the secret of her child. It was the strength she'd shown, the love she'd held on to even in her darkest moments. It was a legacy of survival. I started to clean the house, not with the intention of selling, but of caring for it. I fixed the porch swing. I washed the windows, letting the light flood in. I even found some old lavender sachets, their scent faint but still there, tucked away in a drawer. Millie must have kept them. A quiet tribute to her sister, perhaps. The abandoned farmhouse wasn't abandoned anymore. It had a story, a powerful, emotional story, and I was now a part of it. Learning about Alara didn't just uncover a shocking legacy. It gave me a sense of roots I never knew I was missing. It gave me a deeper understanding of the quiet strength that had always been a thread in my family, a strength that started right here, with a young woman named Alara, and the heartbreaking secret she kept hidden beneath a loose floorboard.